Alright, I figured I will add detail to the flat earth. In this video I want to talk about the movement of the earth or the lack thereof. I've been getting a lot of feedback from the memes I posted. I posted like 70 memes about the flat earth, and then I did a video about the introduction to the flat earth, and I've been getting a response to it. And what's interesting is that a lot of the responses are just someone saying, "You're a fucking moron, you're an idiot." And it just shows that they got nothing to back themselves up. They can't prove the Earth is a sphere. They can't prove the Earth is moving. They can't prove the Earth is not flat. And disprove anything else about the flat Earth. So all they can resort to is mocking and calling names because they can't engage in an actual argument. That's how you know someone's lost the argument, is before anything even starts, they just start calling you names. They just want to try to demean you and humiliate you and intimidate you into just basically giving in to their point of view, which isn't going to happen in this case. I'm just going to go with the truth. I don't really care what a bunch of people who reject the truth have to say. It's like a little kid calling me an idiot or retard. Yeah, I don't much care for it, but whatever, it's a stupid kid. What do they know, right? But anyway, getting some feedback, and I figured out I'd detail, and I would do little pieces at a time, as things come up. I figured that is what was going to happen. So here we are. What we're looking at here is a time lapse of Polaris in the center here, and all the stars going in a perfect circle around Polaris. Now that is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, this doesn't prove whether the stars are moving or the Earth is moving, but we will get into that. We will get into that. But what this does disprove is what they're telling us about the movement of the Earth. Because let's say the Earth is moving, right? They tell us that not only is it spinning, but it's spinning on a wobble. So it's not perfect circles. We should be seeing a wobble, right? And on top of that, the Earth is not only spinning in a circle and wobbling, it's also flying off in this direction around the sun. And the sun is also dragging the Earth through the solar system, through the universe, what have you, right? Yet we see these perfect circles and Polaris not moving at all, which showing that either the Earth is stationary and it's spinning in a circle in one spot and the stars are not moving, or the stars are moving and the Earth isn't, and they're moving in a perfect circle. But what we can tell is there's definitely not a wobble, and we're definitely not flying around the sun, and the sun's not dragging us around, because we would see evidence of that from the time lapse. And you can go check out the videos of this on like YouTube and Rumble, BitChute, Vimeo. I'm sure they're all over, even some on Facebook and whatnot. Probably see short ones on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram or what have you. So I'm sure if you look for that, you'll find it. I know the algorithm's a bit messed up. I was actually testing it out, and if you put in stuff about flat earth proof, you're going to get hundreds of videos mocking and trying to disprove the flat earth, and it's going to be very difficult to find videos about the actual flat earth and proof for it, which is very interesting. But it just goes into the post I put on Facebook about why they don't want you to know the shape of the earth, because it's actually very important, and it's important to their plans of what they're going to do next. So anyway, before we get into the experiment to show whether or not the Earth is actually moving or if it's the stars moving, I want to talk about what somebody brought up. They brought something up to me that I thought was kind of silly. And they took a car like this. And they were saying, when you're driving around, riding around your automobile here, and there's a fly in the car, You'll start driving and you will not notice the effects of movement. You feel kind of like you're not moving except for maybe the vibration of the car, but there's cars that are really smooth, and if the road's smooth, it kind of feels like you're not moving at all. And you can have a flying around as if the car's not moving, right? Because the air in the car is moving with the car. And it's like, that's so true. But if that is the case for why we don't feel the earth moving, basically what you're saying is that we have, let's go back to this one real quick, a spherical dome covering the earth. I hope I don't get something about Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel. Okay, here we go. This one will work. So, if right here is the earth, right, and we're looking down at it, this is the North Pole, and it's spinning, right? And this is the atmosphere, those white parts of the atmosphere. There's going to have to be some kind of dome structure, spherical dome, I don't know what else to call it, an eggshell casing that is outside of the atmosphere, but it's also moving with the earth, so either by connection by magnetic forces or it's attached to the earth, let's say at the poles. It has to be attached somehow or connected in some way that it's actually moving with the earth, and it's keeping the atmosphere moving with the earth as well. So there would actually have to be some kind of like back panel, because even if both of these were moving, it doesn't mean the atmosphere is going to move with it, because this atmosphere can stay still if this circle moves and this circle's moving. This atmosphere doesn't have to move, so there'd have to be something right, like only has to be one place, like a line right here, a wall of some kind that drags the atmosphere with it, as your back window would do for your car, your truck, or whatever your automobile is, right? And it brings the atmosphere with it. And nobody who believes in the globe says that. They basically say there's the atmosphere, and then all of a sudden there's space. There's no coding there whatsoever, especially since they want to say they went through everything and went to the moon. So they don't believe that there's any kind of outer rim. So basically, we would feel the movement of the earth then, because it would basically be like riding in a convertible. You ride in a convertible, or even with one of these cars, you just roll down your windows, you feel the movement. You feel the air. You remove that windshield, you feel it even more. All that wind in your face, the faster you go, it's like riding a motorcycle, right? That should be a better way to put it. They want to say, oh yeah, in a car you don't notice. Well, that's an enclosed system with a dome on it. It has its own little atmosphere going on. You are saying the globe model that there is no dome or anything. So it's more like riding in a convertible or riding on a motorcycle where the wind is in your face and you can tell that you're moving, and a no-fly is going to be keeping up with you. I brought that up to the person who kept bringing it up, and they stopped bringing it up. They stopped talking about it. They stopped talking to me completely because they started to realize how foolish they are sounding. A lot of these people don't really think things through. They just go with what they're told. And they think they're smart because they're following people that they think are smart. They're following man. They're not following their God-given brain and thinking about things on their own. It's like they lack self-confidence, self-esteem. They can't think for themselves because they don't think they're smart enough. You need a PhD and a lab coat and be on TV to be smart. And if you're not one or two or three of those things, then you're an idiot and you just got to believe what they say. And that seems to be their mindset. So anyway, let's get into an actual experiment here, showing how it is the stars that are moving, not the Earth. And let me make this all the way up. And I know the volume might not be perfect, so I'm going to go over it at the end. I'm not going to finish the whole 4 minutes. I don't need to. It's only like a minute and a half we're actually going to have to listen to. So check this out.
If a telescope is pointing at a star and both are stationary, then obviously the light comes straight into the telescope. In 1729, Bradley found that he had to tip his telescope forward very slightly to get a star in the centre of his telescope. It was assumed that this was due to the motion of the Earth around the Sun. Let us assume that the telescope was moving at 5 miles an hour and had to be tipped 5 degrees. This 5-degree tipping, however, could equally be caused by the ether moving at 5 miles an hour, carrying the stars around the Earth. As we see here, the light would be coming in at the same angle, and the telescope would still have to be tipped 5 degrees. So tipping the telescope does not tell us whether it is the starlight moving or the telescope moving. However, there is a simple experiment that can determine whether it was the Earth that was moving or the ether and starlight. All that you had to do was record the tipping required for any particular star, then fill the telescope with water, which greatly slows down the speed of light in the telescope. So here is the moving telescope filled with water, tipped at 5 degrees, and you can see that the starlight does not now reach the eyepiece at the bottom. This is because the starlight moves much more slowly when passing through water. However, if the telescope is tipped further, say 10 degrees, then the starlight will then be visible again in the eyepiece. It has to be tipped further because the light is now slower when in the telescope. But if the starlight is going past the telescope at 5 miles an hour, then when it is filled with water, no further tipping is needed because the light is coming in at 5 degrees anyway. The starlight stays on the same path but is only travelling slower in the water.
Okay. So let me back this up a little bit. This is exactly what we end up seeing. So to go over this, they put a telescope straight up looking at a star, but they realized that they had to tilt the telescope to see the starlight, to get the starlight to go directly into the eyepiece, right? So they figured, hey, well, the Earth has to be moving. But it could be that the stars are moving. Like I brought up in the beginning of the video, the stars are obviously going in a circle around Polaris, and Polaris isn't moving. So either the stars are going around Polaris at the North Pole there, they're moving, or it's the Earth that is moving and it just appears as though the stars are moving. So it's kind of like you have stars that you put on your ceiling that glow in the dark, and if you look straight up in the middle of your room and you spin in a circle, it appears that they're moving around you, right? But they're not moving. But then again, if you put those stars on a ceiling fan, you could stand still and they could be moving in a circle around your head, right? In this case, we don't know which one's moving, right? Well, other than what I just told you about the car and the atmosphere, you wouldn't be able to tell which one's moving. But this experiment helps prove which is actually moving. And what we end up seeing is that we fill a telescope with water, right? So if the star is moving, the light is coming at the same angle. They had to tilt it 5 degrees to get the light to go directly into the telescope. So they fill it with water, and the light of the star still comes in at the same angle. It's coming at a speed, and when it hits the water, it slows down, but it stays at the same angle and hits the eyepiece because the telescope is not moving. If the telescope were to move, then when the starlight comes down at its speed, it slows down and it's going to end up hitting the side of the telescope and not hitting directly in the eyepiece because the telescope is moving. Right? So they did the experiment, they filled it with water, and the starlight still hit the eyepiece, showing that it's the stars moving, not the Earth. So that should be all that is really needed to be said. I want to end the video putting it on some of these cool pictures here. That the Earth is not moving. There's no evidence to show that the Earth is moving. You pointing at the sun and the moon and them going across the sky or the stars, it doesn't prove the Earth's moving. It proves that the sun and the moon are moving, as we showed with light. It's an assumption to say that the Earth is moving, and as I said, if the Earth's moving, there has to be some kind of enclosed system in keeping the atmosphere attached to the Earth to move with the Earth. If not, it would be like riding a motorcycle or a car that's a convertible, and you have the roof down, the windows down, the wind's coming right at you, and it would be 1,000 miles an hour because that's how fast they say the Earth's moving. So I bring this up because that's one of the main things I was talking about with the fella, because we was already brought up perception. And from your point of view, like looking down a straight road or some train tracks and looking at the telephone poles and whatnot, it's going to look like the telephone poles on your side are shrinking and coming into the front of you, even though they're still staying on the side of you. The train tracks look like they're going up and shrinking, that they're pinching together. And if you were looking down a hallway and you had lights on the ceiling, the lights would still look like you could still see under the lights because you're under the lights, but they would look like they're going down to your eye level and they shrink away. And there's only a certain limit to your vision, so when it reaches the edge of your vision, things just kind of disappear behind this edge of your actual vision. That's why when you see, you know what, I'm going to stop there because I'm getting kind of off subject here. I want to stay on the Earth moving. But I was talking about that. Somebody's talking about the sunset and whatnot. And I'm like, well, if the sunset is setting the way you say it is, you would have to say the Earth is moving. And there's no evidence to show the Earth is moving. And they were like, well, can you prove that it's not moving? I'm like, well, you're making a very outstanding claim, so you need this outstanding evidence to show that the Earth's moving. I can just go out and say, hey, the Earth's not moving. Look, you can see and you can feel that it's not moving. There. That's the starting point. Now, I don't have to prove it's not moving. That's kind of like me sitting here. I have to prove I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I'm just sitting here. Well, I have to prove I'm not moving. That's totally fucking stupid. If it's so obvious that I'm not moving, and you want to prove that I'm moving, you actually got to prove it. You don't just play these games saying, well, prove you're not moving. Well, because I'm sitting here, standing still, sitting still. What else do I got to do to prove I'm not moving? You know, it's a lot of these stupid, idiotic games these guys play that just don't want to accept the truth. But, yeah. You know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to end this video getting into... Well, these kind of pictures don't seem so cool afterwards. After you go down a little bit, I'm actually going to read something I posted about why the shape of the Earth matters. I'll do it with one of these nice pictures up here. Let me go to my thread here. I didn't post it all that long ago. So let's see here. Okay. It's kind of lengthy, so hopefully I got the breath for it, and I drank plenty of water. So here we go. I say, why does the shape of the Earth matter? I mean, who cares, right? Well, let me explain why it matters. Knowledge is power, and when you know the truth, you cannot be fooled by the lies. If you know the earth is flat, you cannot be fooled by there being aliens or that we can just move to another planet, right? Because that's what they want to get at, is that there's aliens and you can go to another planet if you want. I have been talking about how they have been using this COVID BS to fool people into giving up their freedom by wearing masks and trying to push for vaccine cards to be able to work, buy, sell, and travel. This would help establish a one world government. Well, how much more so do you think aliens showing up would do so? Ex-President Reagan even said that aliens showing up would help the world put away their differences and unite together. They cannot take your freedoms from you, but they can trick you into giving them up with your own free will. The shape of the earth also plays a part in you either being a silly talking monkey or the child of God. You are either an accidental formation of matter with no purpose just flying through space till you die, or you are the child of God created to know God and enjoy God. This is a fundamental belief that affects the psyche and ultimately your actions, choices in life. You are just an animal waiting to die, so enjoy life while you can, and who cares about right and wrong? We make it up as we go. Rather, you are a child of God and need to be healed from your traumatic educational abuse from your childhood. I just don't want my screensaver to come up, so I'm going to move that around every now and then. If the earth is a sphere, you can have aliens show up and claim to have created you and that they are here to save you from yourselves. If it is flat, you're going to have people start looking for God and wonder why the system lied to them and hid the truth from them. If you are a Christian and believe the Bible, yet believe the earth is a sphere, you believe man over God, just as Eve believed the serpent over God. If you believe the Bible is the way God speaks to us and is what we need to compare everything we learn from man's spirit or so-called alien to in order to figure out if it is true or not, then you have made a huge error in your belief, my friend. I have come to realize why so many great men in history believed the Bible by faith, by trust in God. Founders of America, founders of common law, founders of all the sciences people today ignore and act as though they are atheistic. I have tested its claims to science and found it correct every time. The flood and how the world is covered in layers formed by hydraulic sorting, the earth being flat and not moving, that DNA shows that we are a creation falling apart and not improving in any way whatsoever. Prophecies of Daniel and Revelation coming to pass and unfolding before our eyes. I see why they cling to the Bible now when in doubt, and the world contradicts it. Let God speak truth, be truth, and every man a liar. It ends up coming down to who do you trust? God, who is the truth and does not lie, God who loves you enough to die for you, or do you trust mankind, who, as you know, being one of them, lie, cheats, steals, murders, and all other kinds of evil? Do you care more about what some random person thinks is true when they do not care about you, or do you care about what God thinks of you? I will end with this. You may be doubting the Bible based on all translations, but I assure you that God kept and protected His Word. That is why there are so many translations. For those who speak English, the KJV stands up to all the tests, and all others are made because God is not going to allow it to be destroyed. So they destroy it with constant additions and revisions. I can and will get into that more some other time. Thanks for reading, and take care. And matter of fact, that's probably something I should do for my next video. I actually kind of forgot about getting into that. So that's a nice little reminder. So, yeah, that's why the shape of the earth matters. And I welcome all the ridicule and all the bullshit. It means little to me, especially where, if people are being belligerent, I can ignore them, I can delete their comments, I can just block them. It's no big deal. I mean, they're just wasting their time and my time. But if anybody seriously wants to discuss these things, I'm more than willing to. I was actually thinking of setting up Skype, but I'm waiting for someone who actually is interested in talking about It doesn't have to be the flat earth. It can be any of the subjects I'm bringing up, or if they just want to talk to me about something. I was thinking about actually just doing that, meeting people, discussing things, learning, teaching. But anyway, thanks for watching and take care.